was foretold that you would be here. Our long-awaited meeting has come at last.
I'm glad I gave you something to look forward to.
We need not be adversaries. The Emperor will show you mercy if you tell me where the remaining Jedi can be found.
There are no Jedi. You and your Inquisitors have seen to that.
Perhaps this child will confess what you will not.
Loud Windstrom, your subspace meditator, coming to you with some brief thoughts, I guess you could say, on my reaction to this awesome Season 2 finale of Star Wars Rebels, Twilight of the Apprentice. Guys, I gotta tell you, this is probably the best episode of Star Wars Rebels that I have ever seen in the last couple of years that I've been watching this show. And I gotta confess to you, kind of straight off the bat, I'm not really a Rebels fan. I'm much more of a fan of Star Wars, the Clone Wars. And but to be honest with you, to see this episode, to see how well put together it was, to see the heartfeltness of the emotions, the tragedy of what happened, especially here between between Darth Vader and Ahsoka Tano, to see how this relationship has developed across the years, I was especially pleased with this episode. One of the reasons why I guess you could say I really did like this episode was not just the return, of course, the reunification, tragic though it was, between Ahsoka Tano and Darth Vader, but also to see the return of Darth Maul in this episode, which you get a chance to take a look at earlier in the storyline. Now, for those of you who don't know, maybe if you haven't watched this episode, I probably should have done this before, but I'm going to do it now. Spoiler alert, spoiler alert. If you haven't seen this episode, stop watching now if you don't want to be spoiled. Wow, this was tragic. This was heartbreaking. There he is.
I won't leave you. Not this time.
Then you will die.
Wow. Wow. Man, it must have broke her heart. Anyway, one of the reasons why I really loved this episode was to in fact see how the tragedy of Anakin Skywalker continues to unfold in this show, but to especially see it from his former Padawan's perspective, Ahsoka, to see how she finally comes to accept that her master is dead, that Anakin Skywalker is not going to be redeemed, he's not going to be returned, that all there is left now is Darth Vader, and that she has to finally accept that and contend with it. This is all. So as I was saying, to see the tragedy unfold between Padawan, former Padawan, and former master is one of the great emotional highs, even though it's a sad emotional high. It's a climax to something that we've been expecting for a long time. Those of us who've been watching Star Wars Rebels from, basically from the latter part of Season 1 onward. And I think for those of us like myself who are Clone Wars fans, if you're not a Clone Wars fan, let me say, you probably may not understand what I'm about to elaborate on here, but to see the relationship between Ahsoka and Anakin Skywalker degenerate into what it is, what happens in this story here, what happens in this episode right here is in fact heartbreaking, because the Clone Wars Ahsoka is much different, of course, than the one that you see right now in front of you. This Ahsoka, of course, is more mature. She's an adult. She's more mature not only physically, but she's also more mature in the Force and in her walk as a Force user. She's no longer a Jedi, so I won't say in her walk as a Jedi. Maybe a gray Jedi might be appropriate to say. But she's no longer maturing in her walk as a Jedi, but she is maturing in her, more mature in her walk as a Force user, and as you can see in their lightsaber duel, in her martial skills. I really kind of expected Darth Vader to kind of take Ahsoka apart in this story, but as you can see, she not only held her own, although she did kind of look like she was tiring a little bit in other parts of the battle. She not only held her own, but she actually managed to beat Darth Vader back a few times and hold him at least to a draw. And from what we can see, she managed to survive the battle and survive that explosion that took place later on in this scene. So Ahsoka has definitely much more mature in Star Wars Rebels than she was in the Clone Wars. Now, to give you a little bit more background, those of you who have seen the Clone Wars, you know what I'm talking about. In the Clone Wars, Ahsoka was, was a teenager. She was much more immature. She both not only in terms of her mental development and her emotional development, perhaps, but also in terms of her walk in the Force and as a young Jedi Padawan. In that series, it was much more master Padawan, teacher, student. But the relationship evolved beyond that, not just to master Padawan and teacher student, if you will, but it also evolved beyond that to mentor friend. You can really see the relationship between Ahsoka and Anakin Skywalker grow to something where they both really cared about each other, where they both loved one another, and I mean that, of course, in a teacher-student way, a mentor-disciple way, and they became really, really great friends, as, of course, Anakin and Obi-Wan Kenobi also did in the Clone Wars, as you could see. But to see that relationship degenerate as Ahsoka left the Order, as Anakin Skywalker felt rejected by her, as his emotions went into a tailspin after she left, and then to see what happened to him in his fall from being a Jedi Knight into being Darth Vader, being seduced by Emperor Palpatine, falling to the dark side, becoming Darth Vader, as all of that we saw in Revenge of the Sith, and now to see all of that climaxing, at least as far as Ahsoka is concerned, in her walk with him, in her reunion with him, is heartbreaking, even more than when she left the Order, even more than when she first begins to sense that Darth Vader is Anakin Skywalker, although she chooses to reject that enlightenment that the Force is giving her. It's all tragic for all of those reasons when you add all of that up and see their relationship across those long years, when she's still a teenager, when she's still growing, and when she's still a member of the Jedi Order. It hurts, and it hurt Ahsoka, as you can see in previous episodes. So this is one of the reasons why this was such a great episode to me, the revelation of all that and what happened with it. One of the other reasons I really like this, amongst others, is because of the relationship between Kanan and Ezra. You do see that developing more, although perhaps from a negative point of view. You do see Ezra being more defiant of Kanan. You do see his kind of impetuousness, in his youth, his kind of stupid bravery, where he thinks he can take on everything, where he thinks he's stronger than he actually is, where you begin to see that Ezra does not know what he doesn't know, and he's not willing to listen to his elders, as it were, in this case Kanan, perhaps a little bit of Ahsoka as well, as elder Force users to him. And he, you see that climax right here in this episode, where he tries to take on Darth Vader, and Darth Vader almost kills him, and it hadn't been for Ahsoka, of course, Ezra would be dead. So I like the fact that you're watching the kid, be impetuous, be rebellious. It's part of what we're seeing as far as his character is concerned. So even though I don't really care for that aspect of him as the kid, I do understand the character arc, and I do understand how he therefore is so easily seduced by Darth Maul, who also shows up in this episode, who preys on the kid's fears, who preys on his aggression, perhaps some of the natural aggression of youth, and seduces him to transform or turn to the dark side. And of course we see that with the holocron that Ezra takes from the Sith temple, even when the story is over in its climax, and he manages to open it, and you see maybe a little bit of redness or orangeness in his eyes, and then it transforms back to his normal blue eyes. But you definitely see that Ezra is being seduced by the dark side. Kanan is blinded, so he is not actually seeing what is going on with his eyes, but I'm pretty sure he's feeling what is going on with Ezra in the Force, and it's probably something that he is not liking. So we're going to get to see a little bit more character development with the kid. perhaps a lot more with the kid in season 3. We're going to get to see a lot more of the development of Kanan in season 3. I'm hoping. I'm also hoping that we're going to see Ahsoka show up from time to time. I do in fact think she was alive. I do think that was her silhouette of her head tails that we saw at the end of the episode as Darth Vader had left wounded from the temple. We see her going deeper into the temple. I do think that was her, so I think she is alive, and I think we're going to see her in season 3, although it might be more sporadically. Darth Maul. Man, how about that Darth Maul, huh? No longer calling himself Darth, no longer formally associated with the Sith, but still the same maniacal, manipulative, and plotting, scheming Maul that we've always seen from the Clone Wars. I did in fact enjoy that. I enjoyed how he presented himself to Ezra as this weak, beaten old man, but we see that as he is using that to tempt Ezra to transform him into his disciple, to turn him to the dark side, that facade falls away very easily. All of us who recognize what Maul is knew that was probably a trick from the beginning. Only Ezra doesn't know. Kanan knew. No doubt Ahsoka knew. We who know Darth Maul knew. But the kid is just too. He's just too. He's just not in. He's not. He doesn't have enough experience and awareness enough to realize what's happening. So I love that fact about Darth Maul coming back. Man, did you see how easily he kicked the Inquisitors' backsides, man? All 3 of those Inquisitors. Man, Maul was just taking them apart. He manages to kill the seventh sister, although he tried to get Ezra to do it and, use that to transform him or turn him to the dark side. Ezra, of course, didn't do it. He dispatched them like they were nothing. I mean, like that. He manages to kill the seventh sister. He kills the 5th brother. And then I think that alien Inquisitor, the one with the three finger digits on his hand, I think it was Kanan who actually damaged his lightsaber, and he tried to use that stupid helicopter thing to escape him and Ahsoka and Darth Maul, but obviously fell into the deep and probably died. Maybe he didn't, but maybe it looked like he was set up as being dead after that. I didn't like that stupid helicopter thing. I hope they never use that again. It doesn't make sense that a lightsaber can do something like that. It has enough lift that will be able to do that, but maybe that was something for the kids. Anyway, whatever. I just hope they don't do it again. But like I said, Darth Maul, man, to see him return, to see him drop the Sith label, to see him be who he was, see how he set up Ezra perfectly, and yet in the end wasn't able to fully transform him, but there were embers left. All of this was beautiful stuff. This was a definitely grade A episode that I have to give 4.75 stars minimum. I'm not going to give it a full 5 stars. The only reason I'm not going to give it a full 5 stars is because I would like to have seen a little bit more emotional weight between Ahsoka and Darth Vader shown, at least from Ahsoka's side, as she realizes that she is no longer going to be able to. There's just no way she's going to bring Anakin back from the dark side, at least not her. We know it's Luke Skywalker later on in Return of the Jedi, of course, but I would have liked to have seen Ahsoka kind of come to this realization even more as, Anakin says, then you will die. She tells him after he calls her a name, after she's cut his face mask open, he calls her by her name, in Anakin Skywalker's voice, and she says, "I won't leave you, not this time," which I thought was a beautiful moment right there of her trying to, if you will, repent from what she did by leaving. She realizes why that caused such a weight in his life, what it did to him, and she was trying to basically get a little forgiveness right there, not only for him but for herself, and what she realized is the hole that left in his heart when she disappeared on him like that. But he says, she says, "I won't leave you, not this time," but he says, "Then you will die." I would have loved to have seen something right there in her that showed right there that, okay, my master is gone. She already realizes this, of course, but just adding that little bit more oomph to it. to me would have made that a perfect moment. And it was a very, very, very good moment, guys. It's a very solid moment. But I just wanted just a little bit tad more, for me personally, I guess. But I will not take away from it at all. It was a beautiful moment. The episode, it was excellent. It was awesome. Like I said, to me, 4.75 stars. It's close to perfect. Very, very much so. And so I'm definitely enjoyed this episode. In fact, I'm going to watch it again just for the sake of it, just for the heck of it. Beautiful moment. I really hope they follow through on this. I really hope they, give us some more stories with meat and with weight next season. Not so much filler, not so much fluff material, but more stories that keep on this main arc, keep on this main storyline, and let us see how this show is going to evolve. I'm really actually looking forward to seeing how Darth Maul, or how Maul is going to factor into this episode, how he's going to come in and out. I'd like to see Ahsoka do the same, Darth Vader do the same, but more important to me is going to be the relationship between Ezra and Kanan at this point. I want to see how these two are going to evolve, and especially now that Ezra seems to be just brushing up against the dark side now. He's taking more and more steps toward it. Let's see how that's going to change his disposition, how it's going to make him more defiant of Kanan, how it's going to make him stand out a little bit more, how that character arc is going to develop. So, brilliant episode on the part of the Star Wars Rebels team. You guys did a great job there at Lucasfilm, and I'm looking forward to seeing, how it's going to happen next season. Great job, guys. Twilight of the Apprentice. Brilliant episode.